Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Principal Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with the best consultants in their niche. Janet Harvey is the CEO of inviteCHANGE, former global president of the International Coaching Federation, ICF, and one of the leading voices in executive coaching and leadership development. With nearly 3 decades of experience helping organizations strengthen trust, collaboration, and leadership effectiveness, she brings a unique perspective on what it takes to build firms that scale without losing their culture. In this episode of the Principal Podcast, Janet shares how professional services leaders can create stronger client relationships, develop resilient teams, and lead through complexity in the world increasingly shaped by AI and rapid change. Janet, welcome.
Thank you so much, John. Delight to be here with you.
So tell us about yourself.
It's always a difficult question to answer because the audience probably wants to know something different from what I might say to you if you and I were sitting on a couch. I have always been involved in human potential. I just didn't know it for a very long time. I was quite driven, worked in financial services. That's my primary corporate work. And before that, a little bit in sales in the garment industry, actually out of New York. And I was quick on my feet, clever, not afraid of change, and very comfortable with the assignments that nobody else wanted. Only I didn't even realize that that was so. But the moment I did was when I decided to become an entrepreneur, because I began to understand what emotional maturity meant, what it means to have rewarded vulnerability. The common phrase you hear is psychological safety, but I don't think that translates very well for most people behaviorally. It just feels like a thing. And I really understand human potential and the importance of harmonizing transactional competence with relational competence. And this is ever more important today as we enter the next generation of fundamental technology-driven transformation. I think people are still in a little bit state of shock. And if the fresh data from the last week is any indication, there is a pullback from the early rapid adoption of some of the things in the tech stack, AI, of course, but it's a little too simplistic. It's in my sweet spot. I guess that's what I'd say.
Okay. What originally got you into coaching and leadership development, and what made you stay committed to this work for nearly 3 decades?
Yeah. The financial services firm that I worked for was Charles Schwab and Company. And I think it was kind of the end of the year of 1990. We had weathered the crash and gone public as an organization. We'd been acquired by a bank and bought ourselves back just before that. And Chuck walked into the boardroom one day and said, I know we hired all these people in our branch offices to be customer service agents, and they've done a fine job. But I can see the future, and it will require that we transform the customer experience in our branches to one of selling, and not violating our conflict of interest, no conflict of interest commitment to clients, but instead bringing financial literacy and financial planning and financial management into the branch offices and deepening the relationship with our customers. At the time, our tagline was being the custodian of our customers' dreams, which is part of what really attracted me to the organization in the first place. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the team that led that initiative of completely redesigning the customer experience. And we had 2 really big change issues. One, of course, was the cultural orientation from service to sales. We were 3 months in. I still had people in the branches asking me if Chuck knew I was doing this project. Always makes me chuckle. And the second was that we had recently hired somewhere close to 24 bankers. And they, of course, thought they understood this market. And of course, they didn't. So to pull this off, to do a complete redesign of the customer experience, it was super important to have them comfortable sitting side by side at the table with someone who was a receptionist in our branch office. We needed that boots on the ground perspective, and we needed their creativity not to be squelched by somebody who was several layers higher in the organizational hierarchy. So moderating that power dynamic in order to optimize the contribution from both sides of that table. And while coaching wasn't yet organized as a profession in the way that it is today through the ICF, we had some early indicators, things like appreciative inquiry and dialogue practices and participatory decision making. There are things that I learned from that initiative that I still use today in organizations, and they scratch their head as if I've just invented something brand new. And in fact, we do, as humans, understand how to have humanity in a performance-driven context. And I proved the case at Charles Schwab. We were under budget, under time, and 96% of the workforce was retained, even with 40% of that moving to a new city and standing up a regional call center for those that wanted to stay in the service role. And we recruited more people into the branches who could see the future. And, you know, if you look at the Charles Schwab ads that are on television today, their roots is in the project we did, 90 to 92. I stuck around a little longer and finished implementation into the talent systems, but I could feel the pull to go be an entrepreneur. So negotiated that exit in 1996, and I've never looked back.
What specific problem are you helping leaders and organizations solve today, and why does solving that problem matter so personally to you?
I think you could pick up any periodical right now, and you're going to see words like stress, burnout, anxiety, incivility, confusion, stagnation, stall, attrition, not having the right talent to match the new tech context. These are all fundamentally human problems. And I think that many organizational leaders are feeling a bit flat-footed in the growing gap between operational performance demands and human capacity. They're navigating relentless change, AI transformation, I'll say workforce fatigue and disengagement, to take all of those qualities and traits into one basket. And of course, what comes with all of that is increasing complexity. So getting decision-making done at the speed they want so they can scale and grow their organizations. It doesn't matter that you have smart people if the workplace climate and culture doesn't have the internal practices to be more relational, because people at the end of the day is how we sustain healthy performance.
Who are your ideal clients today?
I think about ideal clients more in terms of their mindset. These are organizational leaders that recognize the role of a leader in an organization and the culture are their strategic differentiators. I've said for dozens of years that your very best consultants already work here. You just don't know how to listen to them. The same is true now as coaching has become more prevalent. Many organizations are a bit blind to the quality of relationships, conversations, decision-making, work processes when adopting a coaching mindset, which is asking before telling and listening fully to learn. We work particularly well with enterprise organizations, professional services firms. We work in healthcare, finance, manufacturing, of course, technology, and hospitality. And Generally, our clients are going to be more on the mission-driven side of companies who understand that to grow, particularly to scale team by team by team, and therefore the growth of the organization means learning how to navigate significant change and mitigate the unintended consequences that always come with that. So our decision makers, they're senior executives. I prefer to work with business unit leaders who understand the cause and effect between measurable business outcomes and the way people behave. And it's very common that we're working with a chief learning officer, a CHRO, or folks who are in a global change role of some variety in the organization. You know, as we start to see AI technology officers show up in the C-suite, we have to ask ourselves, what are they paying attention to with that? I think the emphasis is more on transformation than it is on the tech. And I say that because in order for adoption to accelerate, we have to address what causes hesitance, what actually causes skepticism, what creates an us and them environment in the organization. If any of those cultural conditions already exist in the organization, AI is going to amplify it. And then they're going to find themselves having to unwind the implementation pace on AI in favor of addressing those cultural factors. I do think that organizations are increasingly recognizing that leadership readiness is the issue and the thing that we are seeking solutions for, alongside of all the amazing miracles that working with a tech partner called an AI agent provides organizations.
You've built a strong reputation in the coaching and leadership space over many years. What does work best for you when it comes to attracting the right clients consistently?
You know, honestly, the word trust. Trust is something that compounds over time. Our strongest growth has consistently come from the quality of the relationships we build and the outcomes that clients experience. Referrals, of course, continue to be one of our most valuable channels because people recommend partners they trust with complex organizational challenges. At the same time, having a more varied portfolio, I think, is also important. And primarily, my role in the organization is to maintain visibility through thought leadership. We host master classes in live virtual. I do a lot of speaking. I'm a podcast guest, as I am with you today, John. Developing content that helps people start to anticipate and create space for being a future fit leader, and strategic digital marketing. These are all things that help us extend credibility at scale. At the end of the day, however, what matters most is the consistency between the message and how they experience us live. When people encounter inviteCHANGE, whether through a keynote, an article, or an engagement, they experience the same values: depth, humanity, rigor, and partnership. Having that alignment between what we say and what we do, that's what builds confidence.
Professional services often involve long trust-building sales cycles before a client says yes. How do you personally approach the sales process, and what do you think you do differently that helps with clients?
I don't think of sales primarily as persuasion. We use a little acronym actually to train people in this construct, simply allowing life's experiences to be shared. And ultimately, I think that the sales cycle in a very high touch, human centered set of solutions, which coaching and consulting and professional development are, is about discernment and partnership building. I hear many organizational leaders tell me today, yeah, everybody says that taking this class is going to change behavior, but it doesn't seem to ever do it. So I think leaders are truly searching for someone who will take the time to understand the complexity that they're navigating and can help them to think about it more clearly. What has been true throughout the 30 years I've been doing this, and was true inside of corporate as an officer for Schwab, is that the system behind the symptoms not just the presenting problem or what we want to pay attention to, and give plenty of time to understanding. Our approach is highly relational and consultative, and much of it we give away for free. What we're really interested in is, are we the best fit? And I think this is another element of our selling process, that the transparency with the potential client is what builds trust. We can show you where we will have impact and where we might not be the best fit. Part of what differentiates us then is that we don't lead with methodology first. We have a very big tool bag. What we want to do is lead with meaningful understanding about what actually moves the needle in the business, and how does the leader who might be the economic buyer or the champion for our work understand the gap. There is a certain level of performance they've already achieved. Congratulations. They have a vision about where they want to go. What we're interested in is looking at what are the qualities and traits, the work processes, the outcomes that sit in the gap between the two that keep them awake at night. I know it's a tired old phrase. We've been using it a really long time. But the truth is, when leaders get stuck in the fear whether or not they're going to make the leap to the next generation of business, that's where we come in to help them to articulate what are the capacities that are missing. Interestingly, John, what I am seeing is that discomfort with, are we ready? Are we capable? Do we have the institutional courage to face the future? Is moving up the ladder in the hierarchy. There's far more resistance to a post-tech world today than I've seen for probably 2 decades. And that means the sales process needs to slow down a little bit, and to evidence that we generally have curiosity about what is it that makes their organization uniquely positioned for their customers. To not lead with AI, but to lead with the customer experience and begin to see, how does the new tech stack affect it? And oh, by the way, change leadership becomes even more important because everybody has excelled in the old system, and they have uncertainty about whether they will excel in the new work processes and structure. If we overstep that workplace climate, it will create even more fear. And that's what we're seeing in the data. 64% of 18 to 24-year-olds have a high degree of disdain for AI. And that's just, what would we say, 16, 18 months into? It took 3 months to get over 1 million people. I think 6 months to get 100 million people using AI. Interesting. It's boomeranging. That's a big leadership challenge.
Once a client starts working with inviteCHANGE, how do you build relationships to keep coming back over long term?
So this is the 3 R's. Relevance, most important. Responsiveness, that's what sustains the relationship and the partnering. And of course, results. That's always the case. And I think back to the sales process, one of the things that an awful lot of folks who are in the professional services space skip over in the interest of getting to conversion is understanding how the client defines success. Some organizations do this very poorly. They can't tell you. But if you're patient and curious enough, you're going to find out what they think their top 5 to 8 work processes are. And they can speak in KPIs, but we have to take it back a notch and say, so if the main KPI is profitability or margin or net income, you can think about any one of those. What are the trade-offs that they make in decision-making in order to ensure that that margin is secure? How often do they dip into the margin in order to accommodate a customer? What is the effect long-term about their financial viability? How they answer those questions, all of which are results-oriented, is going to reveal what will be relevant as an intervention. It might be that the sales organization is where it starts because they're creating the energy leak by not abiding to the financial KPIs. That's just an example. I could go through every part of the organization and help articulate what is the success measure. that people pay attention to, and you can see it in the choices that they're making, and therefore the leadership behavior that's being modeled on down into the organization, all the way out to the point of customer interaction, or touch points as we often talk about it. So staying connected to that client's evolving business realities, the leadership pressures, the organizational goals, and those measures. Constantly coming back to them to understand, are you achieving a regenerative impact with the decisions you're making? And if not, what does that suggest needs calibrating in leadership behavior? So that consistent attention to relevance is how our work creates internal ownership for the outcomes that are being produced. No external party can produce outcomes for the organization. What we can do is reveal to them what gets in the way and what accelerates and amplifies it. So we don't position ourselves as heroes. We help leaders really strengthen their own capability and the culture so the organization can be more resilient and adaptive, because change ain't slowing down, that's for certain. And I think clients continually return to us because they experience both measurable outcomes and meaningful human impact. You know, the future is here already. And we barely are swallowing it to look around the corner and realize another generation of it is going to come right down the pike. I think organizations crave partners who can hold complexity with both rigor and humanity.
Where do you personally find yourself most stuck right now as a consultant or CEO, if at all?
I don't think anybody who knows me well would say I ever am stuck. But I will say I am aware of places that create discomfort. And I think the tension between speed, depth, and quality is on everybody's minds right now. Not wanting to be left behind in the face of what I think Jeffrey Moore would have said is a big sea change in the tech curve. And everybody wants to be on board and take best advantage and get the promise of the productivity gains and the creativity gains. And yet often those decisions get made top down without consultation internally. And it doesn't ripple out to create the same experience as they've envisioned at the point of customer interaction. So this is that tension between speed and quality. What is the promise that's been made to the customer? And are we continually delivering on that as we're fundamentally transforming work processes? And then I think depth comes in here, because differentiation is usually because something has been added to things that are expected work processes from customers. You know, in the old days, when Nordstrom still took back anything you bought, that was one of the things that was incredibly differentiating, and it brought people into stores because they'd be returning something that didn't work for them, and it was a sales opportunity. So they saw that trade-off, and they built great depth in their customer relationships. They saw a huge dip when they removed that policy. So organizations who have a little more patience and can think more systemically to how they have built trust with their customers for their unique value proposition are going to be able to navigate that tension between speed and quality a little more effectively. Not, meaningful leading and culture transformation, they require things like reflection. What really happened here? It didn't produce the results we wanted. What actions did we take? What was behind those choices? What assumptions were we making? What data did we have that we dismissed because we were attached to the way we've always done it? These are the things that then lead to different decisions to build trust and integrate a different set of behaviors into the future. I certainly see it in our organization. I can't remember a time when we've had as many transformation projects going as I do right now. And you have to balance that innovation with sustainability. Can I keep running the show the way we've always done it until we're ready to flip the switch? Can I phase flipping the switch so that we can take advantage of the new productivity and not risk confusion in the workforce because they're operating in two environments? How long can we sustain that? To evolve rapidly enough to stay relevant, we also have to protect the depth and humanity that defines our work. So I think many leaders, including myself, are being asked to lead through ambiguity and to really trust our guts at an unprecedented level. I don't think there's a perfect playbook for this moment. Presence, perceiving, partnering, these are much more important. And oftentimes that means partnering deep into the organization because we're too far away from what's actually transforming. Particularly if you think about customers who are early adopters of AI, if that's in your customer base, they're going to expect that your team is as facile as they are. And if you aren't, they're going to exit. They're going to go someplace else. So leading today requires an ongoing inner work, not just an external strategy. And it might mean getting really comfortable with the discomfort of saying, I don't know. I wonder how you all would describe what's happening at the point of customer interaction. What does that suggest the new possibilities are? What are we inadvertently putting in your pathway that's causing that adoption to slow down? That's a humble yet direct. That's a relevant and a human approach, asking before telling and listening fully to learn what's actually occurring.
Jen, a great conversation. If people want to find out more about you and see what you do, where should they go?
My LinkedIn page has tons of webinars and articles. I'm a constant writer for Forbes Business Council. I also have been writing for, I think, 20 years now to the magazine called Choice, which is the magazine of professional coaching. So my LinkedIn, and then, of course, our website, inviteCHANGE.com. And we're rolling out a brand new platform. So pretty soon you're going to see everything on go.invitechange.com, but you could go there as well and have a little peek into where we're headed.
We're going to put all the links in the description. Janet, thank you so much for coming on the Principal Podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure. Hope it's useful for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.